What are some of the FAQs about the endorsement and deployment of Filipino volunteers overseas? First, who should apply for a PNVSA endorsement? All Filipino nationals who intend to work or are preparing to leave to serve as volunteers overseas and whose placements comply with the policies and regulations of PNVSCA. Second, what are the requirements and operational guidelines in the issuance of a PNVSA endorsement? First, the sponsoring volunteer sending organization is duly registered with PNVSCA. Second, deployment shall conform to pertinent laws and issuances of the PNVSCA to ensure the protection and safety of Filipino volunteers doing volunteer efforts abroad. And third, volunteer deployment should be approved, properly cleared, and registered with PNVSCA. Third, what are the legal basis or policy guidelines for the issuance of a PNVSCA endorsement? The Republic Act 9418 mandates the PNVSCA to serve as a clearinghouse for matters pertaining to international volunteer services, which includes the deployment of foreign volunteers in the Philippines and Filipino volunteers overseas. The guidelines in the deployment of Filipino volunteers overseas, or PNVSCA Office Circular No. 7 Series of 2006, prescribes the policy in the deployment of Filipino volunteers overseas, specifically stated in Section 2A that no deployment of Filipino volunteers overseas shall be allowed unless they are approved, properly cleared, and registered with PNVSCA. Section 2B further requires that the sponsoring volunteer sending organization shall be duly registered with the PNVSCA and covered by a bilateral agreement in case of a foreign government volunteer organization or a memorandum of agreement in case of a private local or foreign volunteer service organization. Please take note that PNVSCA does not endorse Filipino volunteers who are not a member or under the sponsorship and auspices of its partner volunteer service organizations for lack of legal basis. Fourth, what is the rationale for the PNVSA endorsement? As the government's clearinghouse for international volunteer service matters, PNVSCA, in consultation with the concerned agencies, adopted common policies and guidelines for the effective and efficient deployment of Filipino volunteers overseas. This is to ensure the following: protection of Filipino volunteers doing volunteer efforts abroad, protect and safeguard Filipino volunteers from any overriding undue exploitation or other forms of human trafficking, and recognize volunteers in their role in international cooperation. And lastly, what are the basic policies in the deployment of Filipino volunteers overseas? Volunteer assistance shall aim towards provision of technical assistance to the development program and projects of disadvantaged countries, and promotion of international solidarity and cultural understanding between the Philippines and the host. Filipino overseas volunteers shall possess expertise essential to the implementation of the program or project and which are not readily available in the country of assignment, be imbued with genuine humanitarian motivation to share their skills and assist developing communities, and possess the capacity for absorbing social-cultural learning which can be translated into opportunities to help the Philippines as well as widen their personal and professional latitude. Filipino overseas volunteers shall return to the Philippines after their volunteer assignment and initiate efforts to share their technical and social-cultural learning by participating in development programs and projects of their communities, as well as help in the promotion and advancement of volunteerism in the country. No Filipino volunteers shall be deployed overseas in technical fields and areas in which there is an equal demand in the Philippines. Filipino volunteers' safety and health shall be of paramount importance in their deployment overseas. For further concerns, inquiries not covered in the list, you may send us an email at international@pnvsca.gov.ph. Thank you.